all promises made to voters become a pipe dream. I wish the sincerity exhibited by politicians when rallying for votes is carried through even when working for Kenyans. Okay? Amaya Bernard says, boss has put it correctly. Devolution has addressed grassroots development, which is bottom-up approach that shared prosperity, so let us strengthen devolution. Young Magician says, which manifestos is Honorable Boss talking about? Does she think we forgot about in 6 months' time? The stadium in Cameroon, free Wi-Fi, each constituency attachment fully funded by government for every university graduate. This time, mambo itakuwa hivi. Okay? Engineer Lazaro says, no party in Kenya can manage to win an election without coalition unless someone is just waiting to be a kingmaker in a possible rerun between the front runners. Kariembi says, I pray for a day when I won't care about who becomes president as long as I'm sure I'll get service from the government, notwithstanding whether my tribesman is in leadership or not. Speaking of which, the members of parliament spoke about this merger between ODM and Jubilee. Let's listen to what they had to say.
Honorable Prime Minister, akisimama tu hivi peke yake, 40% of the country iko locked. Hata hajaangalia hata deputy ni wa kutoka upande gani. Kumuongezea tu ni kumjazia. Wengine bado wanatafuta.
And for a long time, me in Nairobi have fought this old man for many years. Let's admit it. Not because he has done anything to Maina Commander or to our community. Just because he was competing with one of us.
Ni kweli tumezoea kukatiana, sasa ni wakati ya kufanya nini? Kukatiwa. And it is actually a new area, so we need you to come. Tunataka pole pole, softly, pole pole namna hiyo, na eventually we'll get all the young people from Mount Kenya na kila mtu atakuja kwa hii laini.
Wengine wanataka the largest community in Kenya wakoe followers yao, wachiwafati hawa, na baba anasema tukae kwa meza tujadiliane. Nani kiongozi hapo?
And if you have not realized that the invasion of Mount Kenya is to isolate us further, please open your eyes.
I was very happy to read the statement from my counterpart in Jubilee, Honorable Tuju, today, that now we are going to take the next step to now formalize the relationship between our two political parties.
Ulikuwa unaenda na ODM peke yake na unatoa jaso na hii hakuna Wakikuyu wamekuja ndani. Mnataka kusema Wakikuyu wakikuja tuungane pamoja na watu ya Nyanza, tutafika wapi?
ODM, Jubilee, KANU are forming a new coalition, isn't it? Which means they are together. They are together. Hiyo gari mimi nawaambia tusonge pamoja. Itawezekana.
Boss, at some point you are part of this larger Jubilee. Now you refer to some of them as tribal kingpins. What has changed?
We were kicked out of Jubilee. I think we all know, it's common knowledge that when Jubilee started in 2013, it is where actually all the road construction, all the work, all the electricity connections, the building of schools, the attempt to create employment through the Big Four was Jubilee's agenda, and I believed in it. But we have all been let down by our party because everything stopped in March of 2018 after the handshake, because the focus became constitutional change and no one was any longer trying to focus on the people that we had promised to serve. And I can just explain that the model that had been used in the past, we have now reconsidered it and realized that we need to change tact. For example, if you look at page 5 of the standard, it says 2.1 million Kenyans in 12 arid counties are staring at starvation. The worst hit is Turkana, Marsabit, and Wajir. It includes Laikipia, Baringo, Lamu, and Kilifi, and so on. One of the things that is being propagated by the bottom-up economic model is to say, since we know that we spend 15 billion every year, which is in our budget, and as a fact that you can check in the budget estimates, put aside to be able to rescue about 2.5 million thereabout households that will always face starvation by the end of the year. The bottom-up economic model will say, this 15 billion from the beginning, we provide it for production of food by those households so that they do not have a situation of facing facing starvation. It's a reconsideration of what was in the manifesto before, because a manifesto is not a static document. It keeps on changing. I'll give one other example. The central region has always made about 130 billion from tea. The western region has the same land size and the same weather. They are producing sugar, and they are making 80 billion shillings a year. Again, we must begin to tell ourselves, how do we give our farmers choices so that they can be able to be involved in production of agricultural crops that have high yields, in terms of making them the money. And lastly, I'll give another example. It's a rethinking again. In Russia imports several, maybe I think the figure was 400,000 tons of Kenyan tea every year. It's a country of more than 200 million people. 90% of them drink tea. But do you know what happens when our tea gets there? Our tea, they use our tea. They never sell our tea as Kenyan tea. They sell it as blended. It's blended with the low quality tea from other countries, and then they are able to meet the demand. Again, it's a reconfiguration of our agreements with a country like Russia through our Ministry of Foreign Affairs and our ambassadors there to say, can we begin to rethink to make sure that we are able to brand our tea, produce more, brand our tea as Kenyan tea. That way we will optimize what we make economically from the sale of that tea. So the bottom-up economic model is a rethinking. We have learned our lessons from the past. We have also learned a lesson that, yes, in the first term, Jubilee was involved in huge capital investments. They were not what do you call them? They are not labor intensive, which means they didn't provide jobs. Now we can tell ourselves we've learned a lesson. We need to change that and say, where do we put our investment in order to spur more economic growth?
Why didn't you and the DP suggest all this while in government for the last 9 years?
Actually, we've learned that lesson was learned from what had happened. And okay, let me put it this way. The first term was to lay the foundation for the infrastructure. Towards the end of the first term, going to the second term, the big four, which is manufacturing, was supposed to spur economic growth. Food security was to allow all these areas that can produce agricultural crops to be able to produce more and optimize it in the manner I have explained in terms of our exports and so on. These are just a few examples. We can talk about this till the cows come home. But lastly, it's important to say the bottom-up economic model is not new in Kenya. It's an economic model that is being discussed by top business school today. They have been discussing it over a period of the last 10 years because every country believed in trickle-down economics. But they later realized it was not working, and they learned a lot from countries like China, who implemented it, and it spurred economic growth unbelievably. They went into labor-intensive cottage industries and so on, and productivity, and it's why they are a big economic force today. That has been studied. So it's not just Kenya that has learned the lesson, or us as UDA that has just learned the lesson. We've actually seen the research that has been taken across the world, except that the way it's simply, and Joe Biden is talking about it now, and I know a few weeks ago he did tweet about it. So every country is undertaking it. Botswana is undertaking it. India is undertaking it at the moment. So why is it that we want to deny things that have been studied? All we have to do is reconfigure the model to fit Kenya. But the model is one that works and one that has been studied. So those who say that, who were making fun of the bottom-up economic model, just reveal that they were ignorant and are not keeping abreast of international developments or readings and research that are being undertaken by our top business schools.
All right, Wamalo, do you find it strange that they have the
let me demystify this narrative of models. You know, model from the academic angle, a model is supposed to provide a theoretical framework, a conceptual framework, where you have variables and you must be able to show. You know, we have the independent and the dependent variables. It is academic, but there's a lot of misinterpretation and application. So in an academic angle or in an academic class, let's say, like, for instance, when you do it at a PhD level, you know, A model is supposed to show the relationship of the variables in the study. And you must be able to demonstrate in that model which one is the independent variable.
Just give examples.
And all that. So the issue here, it depends with the interpretation. In a nutshell, the bottom-up approach has been there. It is whereby, for instance, let's talk of Uwezo Fund, for instance, where the government had developed some funds, and you are giving the small mwananchi who is down there, whether you have a saloon or you have a car wash, to start your small business, so that you grow upwards and maybe be able to pay money, for example, to the KRA. You know, so it is something that has been there. But I've seen a lot of excitement.
Yeah.
So this issue is not something new. It is the way somebody interprets it from what perspective. But from the academic angle, if I'm in a class, in academic angle, let's say at the PhD level, when you look at the thesis, at that time when you come up with a model, is when you're going to look at the issues of the variables, the issues of the constructs. But you don't want to be academic. But what I want to say is the bottom-up approach, what it simply means. You've empowered the small manager who is down there to be able to improve in his business to come up so that he can be able to contribute maybe the national revenue. And when you look at the current government, the way it is already there. When you say that you're going to give, I've given a model of Uwezo Fund. The Uwezo Fund that you are giving out money to the women groups down there, to the boys down there, it is empowering them. So it's not something new. Yeah. So we should not have any excitement about these things of a bottom-up approach, because all the funding, when it comes from the treasury. It is the source of the fund. So when that money comes, we have had Uwezo Fund, we've had the Biashara Fund, we've had the Youth Fund, the Women Fund. These things have been there. Okay. So it's not something new. Okay. It's only maybe people is when they are realizing this. That's why I've been avoiding to talk about it. But when you come to an academic level, when you talk of those models, then we can go deeper into many other issues that we don't want to go there. But now, let's forget about the issue of models. You see, every country, when, for example, when Kibaki came to power, it was through economic recovery and wealth creation. Those were the two critical things. You look at the GDP at that particular time, the growth level, it was negative. He rose it up to almost 7%, and it came to the Vision 2030. Because of the COVID pandemic, as we speak right now, the GDP of this country is growing to somewhere, maybe 1% or so. So really, any serious presidential candidate or any coalition should actually give ways of how they are going to bring about the issues of the economic recovery, to create wealth and employment, particularly to the youth. That's where the big problem is. But the issue on the issues of corruption. Corruption is critical. His Excellency, the President, said that we lose 2 billion per day. And also the report from the Auditor General that the 30% of our national revenue is lost through corruption. So what we need to do here, we have institutions that fight corruption. We have the ESCC. We have the DPP. Even the judiciary. Right now, as we speak, the judiciary has been complaining on the issue of funding. So if the judiciary can be funded fully, it also help in fight against issues of corruption. The ESCC is there, the DPP is there, the Auditor General. We already have offices in this country. But the issue is this on the way forward. How do we strengthen them? Because it doesn't make sense for you to look for 100 billion and 30 billion or so, or 40 billion, wasted through issues of corruption. It's like you have a tube and it's leaking. We must be able to seal these issues of the leakages. To me, that is actually very, very, very critical. And as we move forward, like One Kenya Alliance, we'll come up with our economic models, because it is work in progress. And we are focusing on issues of economic recovery and inclusivity. And that's why the choice of the name One Kenya Alliance. And we call upon the like-minded parties to join us, because we believe 2022 government will be formed through a coalition, not a single political party.
Are you willing to work with Honorable Raila Odinga as One Kenya Alliance?
The defining word is like-minded. When I listened to yesterday's speech by Raila Odinga in Nakuru, and some things I saw of convergence is he spoke about the issue of national unity and economic recovery. And I see it cuts across. Even William Ruto has talked about the same. So when you analytically look at these models of all these presidential candidates or these coalitions in terms of manifesto, you'll find actually it's the same.
Okay.
So as the right time, we are going to have a lot of alignments and realignments.
Okay.
But as we speak right now, I'm in One Kenya Alliance, and we are going to have, likely, to have 3 horses. We'll have One Kenya Alliance, we'll have UDA, and we'll have ODM. I saw Honorable who was talking about KANU. I saw KANU in Naivasha. KANU was not in Nakuru. So I don't know why our colleagues the other side were talking of KANU, because, and the question was being asked, that where is KANU? One thing I know is KANU is committed in One Kenya Alliance.
Okay.
So the one
KANU is one man.
the other one of Jubilee and ODM, and I saw Honorable Tuju writing even to ANC, to Ford Kenya, to Wiper, and they want us to go into coalition. We're already in One Kenya coalition, the bigger one. So if they're willing, let them join the big ship of One Kenya Alliance.
Okay.
And that is the next government.
Trevor, I want to comment on one of the viewers' comments that was just shown.
Yeah.
And he said he prays for the day when he doesn't have to care who is the president, and yet he's receiving all the services he needs. And truly, I think this is what most Kenyans will want. And this is where our constitution truly was leading to, when you think about it. You know, the constitution, Schedule 4, has devolved 14 functions to the county governments: agriculture, health, control of the environment, cultural activities, transport, you know, everything that encompasses everyday life of Mwananchi. That which will create their jobs, give them their basic education, and deal with health, you know, and then all the other things upon that. And this is why we keep saying, even in Wiper, that we must strengthen devolution, because therein lies the solution to everything that Kenyans want. You know, after all, every Kenyan wants to, you know, have a good life, you know, lead a good life, see that their children have a good future. You know, every mother, that's what they want. Every father. Then the young people who are now getting more educated and more educated, they want jobs. So the county government functions that have been devolved are really the solution to this thing. And we must celebrate it. And this bottom-up model that UDA has been talking about is already captured in this devolved function. You don't need now a national leader to come and decide, say, for Northeastern about their issues. What you need to do is give them enough money and leave the president to deal with issues of foreign policy and maybe things like that. The way we've seen the American governments do. You've seen how independent what do you call them, the county governments, so to speak, the states in America are. And this is where we should be fighting to get to as Kenyans. We've only done 10 years, and I think we've done well. You know, the devolution conference is now coming up, where we're going to take stock on how far devolution has come. And you know, you can't take back that gain, but you know, you can learn from the lessons. Some of the things that we have encountered now in this particular government is the fact that devolved money does not go down in good time. And you'll hear this from the Council of Governors when they speak. They'll always say, you know, the money comes, you know, so late in the financial year, they're not able to absorb it, or they have to absorb it then very fast. It affects their planning and things like that. These are the issues now we need to address. And like rightfully, Honorable Boss has said, you know, that fiscal discipline then becomes very critical, that the next government that comes, because money still has to be collected through treasury. It can't be collected in any other way. Then after it is collected, then it is now, you know, sent out and you know, to its various functions. So we want a government, like we have said now in our conversations yesterday at One Kenya Movement, that the devolved unit must be given priority when it comes to sending down money, because this is the unit that really handles Mwananchi's needs. And then we have to really educate Kenyans on public participation. If you see how it works like in Sweden, where town hall meetings for public participation are so critical. So at ward level and at village level, you have people sitting down, youth represented, women represented, people living with disabilities are represented. They sit down and decide, this money that is coming to our ward, this is what we want to be prioritized in terms of development. Okay. And you know, this is the conversation we must be pushing and reminding Kenyans. We passed the Constitution 2010, you know, because this is the kind of devolution of money that we wanted. Okay. And in the end, what the Kenyan who wrote there on today, there will come a day when the president is not really the biggest defining factor for your everyday life.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have to strengthen our institutions. And a part of strengthening devolution means we are also strengthening now, the institutions then that can ensure that fiscal discipline that Mheshimiwa Boss was talking about, ensure a good election every year for making sure that Kenyans get, the leaders that they indeed want. And then, of course, Kenyans have to wake up and hold their leaders to account.
Yeah.
Kenyans must hold their leaders to account. That money that comes down to the county, you must make sure is dealing with your issues. It must deal with, if it is food productivity, so that in the next, cycle, you don't have issues of lack of food and things like that. We don't need national leaders to come and help us in the county to resolve our problems. We should be able to use our leaders at the county level to resolve our problems. And that is the whole essence of the devolved function.
Okay.
And we must celebrate this. And lastly, Trevor, just lastly, there will be no economic model that will recover our economy if we are not talking about dealing with corruption.
Okay.
We have to really be clear. Kenyans, we have to be clear about this. Let your leaders tell you, how are we dealing with grand corruption? Before, the one that has eaten all your money because of those big infrastructure projects, which were used to exit corruption money, because they were all inflated.
Yeah.
And going forward, how will corruption be dealt with?
Okay. Boss, speaking about accountability, is it fair to have IEBC leadership that presided over an election that was nullified to redo another election?
Okay. I think there's a lot of mischief in the calls by ODM for the resignation of Chebukati, or basically it's mob justice against him. If they think that Chebukati committed any of the offenses set out in the Constitution, then they must prepare a petition, submit it to Parliament, it will be considered, and if it is found necessary, then the President will be asked to set up a tribunal to now interrogate his competence so follow the rule of law. Let us stop being a lynch mob in this country. Because as Senator Kasango says, we need to strengthen our institutions. How will we strengthen our institutions if each time someone can never have the peace of mind to make a decision or undertake any job without politicians calling for them to be wrongfully dismissed and illegally removed from office? You do not call for removal of an independent commission, independent constitutional commission from a funeral in the village. You file a petition, and the worst part, it's coming from legislators. They are in Parliament. So how do we believe ourselves as parliamentarians? Do we believe in our work or the work that we are elected to do, which is making the law, if we are the ones who call for the law to be contravened? I think it's wrong, but it doesn't come as a surprise. Remember the IEBC Machozi Mondays, when we had the protests outside the IEBC officers in University Way. They were calling that IEBC must go. Eventually, there was the Kiraitu committee, which then proposed for a transition, and that's how the Hamed Isaac, so they're the ones who removed the Hamed Isaac team out of office. Yet there was no nullification of an election at that time, but they just wanted them out because they had lost. They then now were part of the process in the appointment of the Chebukati team. But shortly after the handshake, they began again saying they want IEBC to go home. Some commissioners were pressured into resigning, but the three of them were left, and they are brave Kenyans, patriotic Kenyans, because can you imagine what would have happened to the by-elections had we had no commission at all? They've stayed on, and now they are now calling for their resignation. Had they thought that the nullification of the presidential election was a basis for removal of the Chebukati team, they should have done it immediately. Because the moment they had the handshake and felt they were in government, they sat back and decided that they are not doing anything about it. Suddenly now, so late in the day, 12 months to the elections, they are calling for the resignation of a commissioner, yet they haven't presented to us the petition. So we challenge them, please present the petition. Yeah. We are not a banana republic. We are a country that has the rule of law. Okay. The reason why we put the process for removal for any public officer and for constitutional commission holders, office holders, was because we knew we also don't want them to feel that they are so independent that they cannot be questioned. We did the same thing for the president, the deputy president, and cabinet ministers, so that we can be able to hold them to account, as Senator Kasango says. The way to hold them to account is to file removal proceedings for those particular officers. Okay. Then we can do it correctly. In fact, I used to laugh when I would see all our colleagues, parliamentary colleagues, braving tear gas on Uhuru Highway, on University Way. I used to ask them, why don't you just file a petition? Yeah. These people can be removed very easily if you have grounds, but you cannot be a lawmaker who uses unlawful means. Yeah. Then it means your people should not be electing you.
Okay. Well, Malo, boss has a point in terms of process, but can you trust an institution whose leadership presided over a shambolic election that was declared by
I want to correct you. It's not shambolic at all. And I want you to do a scientific research. Scientific means something that even another third party, when he conducts the same research, he'll come to the similar conclusions. Look at the number of petitions that were taken to court. And we had by-elections. What percentage succeeded and what percentage failed? That is a proper scientific research you can do. And I want to tell you that most petitions that went to court, it's only 5% that went through. So 95% did not. So this is to tell you, in terms of success factor, when it comes to IBC, it is about 90–95%. That is a scientific research. Just go to the High Court or wherever judiciary. People who went to do petitions, start from the members of parliament, whether Senate or National Assembly, MCS. How many of those petitions went through? Then get that out of the total times 100.
But what is the focus of the people, Mheshimiwa Malo?
No, I'm coming to that. I'm just building my case because you say shambolic. Yeah. First, you need to understand under what circumstances were the nullification of the presidential results. First, there was an issue of opening the servers. Let's go back to that. The issue was there of about opening the servers, and I think it was very critical because they went to open the servers, the servers were not being opened. The IBC is a constitutional office. It is the referee when it comes to elections. So if you know you're going to be a player, you can't just come at the last minute and you say so-and-so should be removed. This commission of IBC has worked under difficult conditions. They've only had 4 commissions. The others had taken off. I think they worked under duress, under some direction. So this commission has conducted the by-elections successfully. I've seen people celebrating about the by-elections. You gave them tick. If anybody has a problem with IBC, Article 119 of the Constitution is clear that anybody can petition Parliament on any matter. Please, bring it on. Then Parliament will look at it and you must start by signing. Then the President will put a tribunal in place. Let them be given fair administration of justice. Yeah. The issue here is this, and and it's been coming from our ODM colleagues. You can't come at such a time, you start yapping and saying, you want Chebukati out. No. Let them bring a petition on the floor of the House. We are going to respond to that. This is the time we've seen the selection panel has just finalized the work. Yeah. It was forwarded to the President. The President has picked the 4 commissioners. The 4 commissioners who speak right now, their names are under the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee of Parliament. So they're doing the issues of the vetting. Yeah. And they're calling upon Kenyans to bring their memoranda. And as Parliament, you want to move with speed. Yeah. So that IBC can have full commission of the 7 commissioners, and they must concentrate on the preparation of the general elections in 2022. All right. That is what we are calling, and we are telling other politicians, please, whatever they are doing, they should stop it. If they have any issue, bring the petition on the floor of the House, we'll handle it. Okay. But leave IBC to do their work without any intimidation. Okay. Thank you.
Kasanga, you're the one who brought up the issue of accountability. Yes. Even though, yes, there's due process, like the 2 Eshimios are saying, it is true, we agree with that. But if you presided over an election that was declared null and void by the Supreme Court, it was at the bare minimum, shouldn't you at least resign?
I guess I want to say is this, we need to judge it from the path, not the end. How was the process, not the end? Because if we look at the process and the issues that were then raised, were they then resolved? Were they really the problem of the commissioner himself or otherwise. And I think I can't place, I can't really answer you directly whether he should resign or not. I can't say that I am fully privy to all those issues. What I know we should be doing today as leaders in the eve of an election is demanding of the IEBC, as they do their work independently, is that we want a very transparent election. Period.
Yeah.
Transparent. And they have to make sure it's transparent at the polling station, and what is declared at the polling station must be then transmitted.
Yes.
And it is for us as now leaders also to monitor accordingly. I was privy to go and observe the election in Zambia through the Forum for Parliaments for the International Great Lakes region. And whereas they had a manual system, I have never seen anything more transparent. Although it was slow, they would call each voter as they come. They had every agent had a voter register.
Yeah.
Each voter was on the register with a picture. In fact, they had a picture on the voters register for every voter. And although there were a few areas where you'd find that a voter has not found themselves in the register, those were in the minority. Most of the polling stations where we went, it was there, it was clear, the voters register was clear. And every agent had a copy of that voters register, and they would identify and tick off every voter as they come in.
Okay.
Then during counting, it was really amazing actually. During counting, although it was again a slow process, it was done so transparently that in the end in our report we said, it was a transparent election. And I think that's what Kenyans are calling for.
All right.
We want a transparent election. And this is the accountability we are going to push for, and we should be pushing for as leaders in the end.
Okay.
That what is declared right there at the polling station is the final result.
Okay.
And that can be traced. And I think what I heard Mr. Chebukati saying is that even this time around they'll invite the media. So that the media can also report what they're getting real time.
Okay.
So that can be compared in the end to the final tally.
The final tally, okay.
And I think it is about, it's about really the process.
Okay.
And we should not now, try and bring other issues, clouding. This is a problem of politicizing everything. We love politics too much in Kenya. We politicize everything, and then we miss the point.
Okay.
If we are really going to serve Kenyans, let IEBC work independently. But IEBC, we must hold them to account that they must give us a transparent election from the polling station.
But
Trevor,
boss,
just one point.
In fairness, even for the IEBC, and I spoke to the chairman myself, and he said that there's still around 11 areas that don't even have network coverage as we speak. That's not his job. They've asked for more than 40 billion shillings. There's a deficit of 14 billion shillings. Are we deliberately then crippling them in the operations?
Yeah. First of all, when I talk about transparency of IEBC, having worked as the Director of Elections and voter registration at IEBC, I know this very well. IEBC is transparent in the sense that their elections operations plan is actually on the website, and you can get copies from any constituency elections offices. It gives you a report and an audit of the previous elections done by independent election observers, and I would ask anybody to go and read it. I would ask that, remember, when you look at the election process, the operations were superb. The voter registration was superb. And remember, election is not an event. It's a process. It's a 5-year cycle. So when you assess the performance of IEBC, you assess the performance along an internationally accredited electoral cycle. So they undertook all the stages correctly, the nomination, etc. The only place that they had challenges have been isolated by our court system. One is the Maina Kiai case, where Maina Kiai was saying that we must make sure that because already the law says that the results from the polling stations are final, which then are tallied to a constituency. So the presidential elections come from a constituency. It does not matter what Chebukati does in Bomas of Kenya. Yes. So it's irrelevant. So whether Chebukati is there or you change Chebukati, it's a zero-sum game for anyone who thinks it will help them. And what Maina Kiai, or what the case was saying, is that probably instead of the results from the constituency and the polling stations waiting for a hard copy so it can be announced at Bomas, let an electronic picture copy, which has also been availed to all command centers of political parties and agents, be posted, so that even before they bring the hard copy to Bomas, you can announce the result and you know what the result is. That was one issue that was dealt with. there was also the issue of the appointment of returning officers, where the court said, Justice Odunga said, we should have appointed them 30 days before the elections. That was found not to have been right. In fact, he said it was irregular. But he stayed his judgment and said, since it's too late now, let me implement it. Let it be implemented in 2022. Yeah. So what IEBC should be doing now is implementing that. And I have looked at the IEBC elections operations plan. They have actually complied with it, because you've seen, it shows the date that they're going to appoint the arrows. The other issue that was raised before the courts was also the decision relating to the gazettement of polling stations and the publication of the voters register. It said it must be done 14 days before the gazettement of the polling stations, so that people can scrutinize, parties can scrutinize the voters register. Yeah. Again, that decision was stayed, but to be implemented in 2022. So what we should be doing as legislators, rather than call for the mob justice on Chebukati, could we please ensure that we immediately push for an elections amendment bill 2021, because the other one was the 2016 one. If we do that, we shall be able to lock. In fact, Kenyans were so lucky, because every irregularity that was dealt with in the nullification of the presidential election has actually been pronounced by the court with very specific direction on which operations must be amended, which processes must be amended, and which laws must be entrenched to cover for that. So we are at a good place. Okay. So we are using the wrong method to correct a problem that we have.
And closing remarks, how do we get...
You mentioned about the 40 billion of IBC budget, and I thought I should comment on that.
Yes.
Because we've been seeing many people commenting and saying, oh, this money is a lot, is whatever. The issue is, call the IBC and let it be itemized, so that they can be able to give the justification and adjust accordingly. Because IBC is supposed to do voter education, massive voter registration, the issue of the BVRs, the issue of the electronic transmission, technology-wise, those things are very, very critical. Yeah. So not any common politician will just come and be able to say these are BCD. So please, call IBC, and the committee in charge in Parliament is Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. Let them present their bills, their itemized budget, and let them give justification. So to me, I can't sit here and be able to dismiss that the 40 billion, because I don't know. So unless the issue is itemized, detailed, and let them sit with the experts. Okay. Maybe also people in ICT who might do some benchmarking in other countries to see how much is the BVR, the electronic voter transmission, and the issue of servers. Yeah.
Mark my words, they need more than 40 billion.
We want these servers to be Nairobi, to be in Trans Nzoia, to be everywhere. We don't want to be told in Paris like last time that people are still sleeping. That they cannot. We want these servers to be everywhere. Yeah. And as Honorable Boss said, the tallying, the voter count that has been done at the polling center, there must be consistency. It doesn't matter what time the hard copy will come, because even the command centers will be able to be doing the tallying. We don't want people to rig elections.
Your phone.
Right. And this is why we are supporting, and we're saying, hey, let's not sacrifice IBC.
All right.
Call them, look at the itemized budget, let them give a justification.
Okay. Kasanga, closing remarks.
Thank you, Trevor, and again, thank you for having me. And just a quick note to Kenyans, and especially young people, is that the season is here. You know, you will have wolves walking amongst sheep. So you have to watch out. You have to listen deeply to what is being brought to you. But more importantly, you must demand of your leaders, whoever is coming out to say that they are going to lead you to the next level or change your economy, ask them how they're dealing with corruption and how they have reached there where they have reached. Okay. Ask for that accountability.
All right. Boss?
I just want to say that the IBC budget is actually underestimated. Okay. The only reason why the budget is like that, it is our fault as Kenyans. We have over-legislated elections. We are the ones who want the top of the range Kim's kit, which even developing countries don't use. We have demanded that we want 700 people in a polling station, which means you need 6 clerks plus 2 presiding officers, which makes people personnel that you must pay. Yeah. You have also said that you want to be able to undertake, what was the other coast drivers?
Yeah.
Our ballots are such that it is a very securitized document. It has 9 security features. It is more safe than a banknote, a Kenyan banknote. So how much do you think you'll spend for that? You will spend more money. We spend more money printing the ballot box.
Okay.
The ballot papers than even printing our own banknotes. If you look at the stations where there is no electricity, do you know how many gas lamps that Iabc buys in order to distribute them across those places? And do you know how much money they spent with the technology companies in places that doesn't have network coverage? They actually have a tower set up which they pay for. All ballot papers have to be escorted the day before by security officers and 2 security officers per polling station. You pay those security officers, by the way, 2,500 shillings during my time per day. How much does that come to? You say that you must, the clerks have to be trained. During my time, there was 80,000 clerks. Now with 6 ballots in one day, the number of clerks must be quadruple that. So in fact, that Chebukati's budget, according to me, is extremely conservative, because even during my time, we didn't have as much technology deployed. When Dr. Chris Wamalwa says we want many servers, that is a cost item immediately. That is what we call cost drivers in election management. Okay. So the more we demand, the more we pay. If we say we want the result form to be taken a screenshot and sent to the various places, we put screens in every tallying center. Do you know how much you charge for hiring those screen centers? In fact, vehicles are hired all over the country. In fact, there's almost, try hiring a car during elections to see how costly it is, because there's a shortage of motor vehicles. Okay. So yes, it is because we are thieves in elections, and we learned our lesson in 2007. The Kriegler report came. My team was the one that started implementing the Kriegler report, and Kenyans demanded, and Parliament passed the law to demand that all those systems, which are unbelievable cost drivers, cost money. Lastly, compare. And when people say Kenya's election is the most expensive in the world, I tell people compare with Australia, which runs the best elections in the world. They use a photocopy for the ballot paper, and their register is manual. And again, it's a photocopy. And you don't even need a voter's card, and you don't need an ID. You simply go to the polling station and say your physical address. They check against your address, they find you, they delete it, they cancel your name, and then you go in and vote. So it is us. And then look at our system, lastly. Our system also that we undertake. We have ID, the National Registration Bureau produces its own IDs. Yeah. Then IEBC registers the same people and gives them voters' cards and puts them on a register. Then we have KRA doing its own thing. Then we have NHIF doing its own thing, and NSSF doing its own thing. If we collapsed all these silos of institutions, we can save significantly. Okay. But again, it goes back to the point of corruption. Every institution wants to procure so that they can be corruption avenues. Okay. So that is the challenge that we have. This thing is so easy to fix, and I still remember Raila Odinga attempted when he was deputy prime minister, and I was part of that task force to have the 3rd generation ID. Was supposed to be one.
Was deputy prime minister.
Sorry, he was prime minister. Yeah. Sorry, he was prime minister, and he was heading the task force at that time, which was, and I was working at IBC. It was supposed to collapse the registration system, so that the moment you get an ID, you're registered as a voter automatically. Yeah. The moment you die and a death certificate is issued, you're deleted from the register. So other countries are doing it. So it's, as Kenyans, we love to make new institutions and new systems, and that is why we are suffering. Okay. So I think it will reach a point. In fact, I want Kenyans to pay so much for this next election, because they are going to pay, and it's more than that 40 billion. I want you to call me back on the show. You will see it's more than 40 billion. Chebukati, I think, because he has been lynched so much, is being conservative. Okay. Also, the last thing we do is, why should we have all the elections on one day?
All right.
Because when you have them on one day, the costs are higher. All right. If you stagger them, it's cheaper.
Thank you. I've run out of time here. Gladys Boss, woman representative for Singishu. Thank you so much for making time. Sylvia Kasanga, nominated senator, and Chris Wamalwa, MP Kiminini. Asante sana for making time. Do we still have time for the tweets, or should we move on? Let's bring them up. See what you're saying really quick. And CH Kamau says devolution was the way to go, where that devolved resources could have been provided in Constitution. We don't need favors. We need to be empowered. Give over 50%. Bottom up will bring handouts back. Okay. Jacob Abere says it's a good political score for Ruto. Coalitions has no value at all as national building is concerned. Only entrenching tribalism and regionalism, and those attacking bottom-up economic concept have no idea but name calling. Okay, you see, the panelists speak of the same thing. I wish they could just come together and build Kenya and stop beating about the bush. Okay. Jeremiah says, I agree with Kasanga on the use of tribalism positively. Nobody will change me from being Mkamba, but we must state that the negative aspect of tribalism that we have used in the past in our politics. Bullying tribes men will not work this time round. Timudeki says the solution is bottom-up economic model where the local mwananchi is empowered to expand the tax base. Otherwise, acquiring more loans to invest in infrastructure and white elephant projects isn't a solution to anyone. And Coach Hillary says the solution to Kenya's problem is to fully implement the current constitution. It is the most bottoms-up approach. In this panel, there should be ordinary mwananchi, not just our political representatives. Okay. All right, that's where we leave it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Let's do this again tomorrow. For now, Willis Rabud is coming up next with the workout. Yes, brilliant. See you in a bit.